What's going on, Omnibuddies? Mitch here, and today we are not doing an unboxing. We're talking about what happens when you do one too many, two too many, three too many, far too many unboxings, and it's time to sell stuff. All right, so what you see behind me is my library. This is what my wife and I agreed on, that I would have the top shelves and all that, and my kids, over there some camera equipment and some other stuff like keyboards and things like that for extra gear. But the rest of it is all kids stuff. So puzzles, Play-Doh, dolls, blocks, whatever, trains, some cool stuff too that I like to play with. So it's not all just my toys up top. Sometimes they're kind of, I like to play with the toys down below sometimes too. Anyways, part of the agreement was that my entire library, my collection, would fit within the confines of these 4 IKEA Havsta shelves. Used to use the IKEA Hemnies, those were great, but we needed the storage that could close down below and open up separately so the kids could get to it without having to open up bookcases and all that. So this is what worked out well for us. But like I said, the agreement was my whole collection would then fit into these shelves. I have a, I think it's a Better Homes and Garden, Target, or Walmart brand cube shelf. It's a 3x3 up in my closet upstairs in our room. And that is for kind of the flow of books. So new books come in, old books going out. What I'm trying to decide on that I'm gonna sell or keep might go sit in there for a little while, and if I miss it, might come back, and if I don't, it should go. Well, the whole thing is it's not supposed to become like a secondary library, and lately it's kind of become a secondary library, and so it is time to do the thing that I feel like us collectors struggle with the most, besides fear of missing out. I have a whole video on fear of missing out if you want to go check that out. Some people really disagree with what I said in that video. Some people really like it, and it really depends on the publisher with that video. Anyways, so I have gone through my library and it was time to cull it so I could free up some space. I freed up a lot of space. I have a bunch more books pre-ordered through the channel sponsor, Organic Price Books. Use code Omnibuddy for $2 off. Omnibuddy, ship it together, all one word, to get 5% off your entire order of 3 or more books. They all ship together, so if you're pre-ordering a bunch of books scattered out and use that code, be careful, because then they're not going to ship until the last book comes in. So yeah, anyways, but if you're buying books that are all shipping together at the same time that are already out, great, use that code. Anyways, that supports the channel, supports great business, all good. So I have a bunch of pre-orders through Organic Price Books coming in. I have a bunch of Kickstarters I've kickstarted, and it's time to clear out some space. And it was time to have that, whatever God you believe in, but come to Jesus moment where you're like, am I going to actually read these books? Am I just holding on to them in hopes? A lot of these I've read, but am I gonna reread them? What am I actually gonna do with these? So I wanted to walk through the steps. I'll show you all the books. I have 3 big stacks right below the camera here. There's a sound of them. I'll show them to you near the end of the video, but I kind of wanted to walk through my process of what I went through to cull my library, my comic book collection. And with it, it was, I liked having that bookcase upstairs, out of sight, out of mind a little bit, where I could put stuff without being like, okay, I'm gonna regret selling this. But if I could put it up there in a stack and kind of forget about it for a month, I'm probably not gonna miss it that much if I really do miss it. So with that, I had the outgoing section. So I wanted to kind of give my tips here. So I don't know if it's 3 tips, 4 tips, 2 tips, but number one is have that outgoing area. So you can have that little bit of cushion, like I said, with my shelf upstairs, where books could go, but they're not actually leaving. And if I wasn't really missing them, all good, I'm gonna get rid of them. Number 2, to even make it up there, I had to be sure that if it was a book I read that I was honestly, if I'm being honest with myself, either didn't really enjoy that much, struggled to get through. I might have enjoyed it at the end or something like that, but it was a little bit of a hard time getting through, but I'm never going to reread it again. And if I do, I can go digital or something like that. But I have that memory of the story. I can go on Wikipedia or whatever and reread the synopsis and be like, okay, that's what happened. That's awesome. So with a couple of these books are volume 1s, and I'm actually excited for volume 2 to come out, but I'm not going to be rereading volume 1 before 2 comes out. So if I really needed a synopsis, a recap to remind myself, I could hit up the interwebs or talk to some friends and be like, what was this book about again? What were the highlights? And I could get all that without having to dedicate, a couple weeks to going through a big thick Omni, or a week of going through a hardcover or something like that. So that was number 2. Number 3 was, I haven't read it. I've had it for a couple years, maybe some of these a few years, and they just keep going to the bottom of my to read pile. They keep getting bumped by bigger, better, more exciting books that I am just plain out way more excited to read and anticipating a lot more, because some of them were just, oh, it's a great sale, I've been sort of interested in it, let's pick it up now. I can read it way later, but they keep moving to the bottom of the list, and my to read pile is gigantic. I'm pretty happy. I've read probably over 50%, I think, of my library, but it's still a lot of a backlog to read. And so am I actually going to be reading these? Am I going to be reading them anytime soon? Could I read them digitally? That's the other thing. So if I'm not going to be reading it in a few years, am I ever going to actually get to it? If I'm telling myself now, in a few years, maybe I'll get to it, because there's so many more books coming out that I'm way more excited about anyways. So let's just part ways amicably and get these books out to someone else who hopefully will read them a lot sooner and get to enjoy them and read these books. Number 4, I think it's number 4. Did I do number 3 or number 4? Whatever. The next one is, if I'm like, maybe I'm going to be rereading this eventually, but I do not see myself rereading it for a very long time. And the book's pretty easy to find, at least as of now. It's pretty easy to find. It goes in and out of print, or it's just not very well regarded as a book that people are seeking out all the time. I know that changes quite often, but it's a book that's pretty readily available, and I could always repurchase it if I'm desperate and really want to reread it. So if it comes to a whale, I need to know that, 1, I'm never going to reread it again, and I know that, or I didn't enjoy it, or 2, I'm just really never going to get to it because I'm just not that interested. That's kind of what I'm getting at with the whales. But otherwise, if it's just a regular book that I can pick up, even if it's slightly over cover down the road, if I really want it, okay, then I can jump back in and grab it. So those are the main ways I went about this. And some of it I needed, like some of my shelf space, like over in these 2 bottom shelves are like my library editions. They hold the really tall books, the absolutes and all that. This one also, actually all 3 of these hold absolutes on the bottom, and those like boom deluxe oversized hardcovers and some of the slip cases and things like that. Big Damn Sin City and Hellboy library editions are all over. So some of those I needed to free up space in those sections for books that were coming or that did come, that I wanted to keep more than the books that were already in, some of the books that were already in there. So some of it was actually scale. So I said, I need to get rid of, a few books out of these sections that fit in there. On this side is like the Dark Horse, I think it's like almost all Dark Horse deluxes. I have my Terry Moore-verse books up there, and Akira, and then Battlestar Alita, and Blade of the Mortal, Berserk, Usagi, BPRD, and Hellboy, all that stuff down there. So those bottom shelves are pretty set. Same for the top shelf. Maybe Berserk and Battle Angel and Blade of the Mortal might switch out here and there. But some of those, like, okay, I need to free up some Omni shelves, I need to free up some deluxe shelves, some oversized hardcover shelves, some library edition, all those. So some of that went into my decision making too, and then that kind of narrowed it down, like, okay, of these shelves, what's my least favorite? What am I never going to read again? What didn't I enjoy? What could I pick up later down the road if I don't want it? So I think that's enough talking. I'm going to keep talking, but now I want to bring out the books that I decided and kind of go through them really quickly on just a little bit of the decision-making process. If you're watching this video way later, I think probably all these books are going to be sold already. I already did sell a couple pretty big whales, actually, so I'll talk about those too. And some of you might be angry at me for selling some books like that. Be like, how could you sell that? Well, it's, you know, it's all personal, what you really like, what you don't like. That's the great thing about comics. Someone could love Jonathan Hickman, and someone could absolutely despise Jonathan Hickman's writing. It's great, it's fine. You know what? If it's not for you, if it's for you, that's great. You can champion that cause, but we don't have to push each other to like what they don't like, or, you know, some of that stuff I held on to because I'm like, everyone loves this series. I should not. Maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe I am. But you know what? If I'm not enjoying the series, it's not for me. That's okay. I can send that book off, sell it, make some funds for some other books, make some space to put those books that I made the money to buy those books with, make some space for them, and everyone wins. All right, let's change camera angles. Let's check out the books that I have decided to sell as of this moment. Okay, so here we are. Here are the books that I have decided to sell. Some of these might be like, whoa, I cannot believe you're doing this, but I am. So let's start with this pile right here, which I might have a buyer for already, but Gundam Origins hardcover collection, volumes 1 through 12. This is the complete series, bought it a long time ago, and frankly, I did try and read it. I read the first 4 volumes. What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. I read the first 4 volumes, and you know what? It was good. I sort of enjoyed it. I love big robots fighting. I love manga, but in all reality, it just was not holding my attention, which kind of sucks. But you know, I gave it a valiant effort. I read a quarter. 4 of the 12. I read a third of the series, and it wasn't for me. And that's kind of what rule of thumb is for me. Like if I'm really going through a book and it's slogging and I'm a third of the way through the book or the series and it's just not holding my attention, maybe it's not for me. I know some people say, oh, you got to wait till you get to the middle. That ending just makes the whole payoff worth it. But to me, if I'm not enjoying the entire read through, maybe if you have to reread the entire thing again, I just don't have time for that in my life with kids and family and work. And I got a whole lot of other books to read too and enjoy. And you know what? If it's not holding my attention past the first third, it's probably just not for me, and that's okay. So I'm going to be selling this off. It's not like it's crazy mega whales, hard to find these books, but this is a lot of shelf space up in my deluxe collection area, Dark Horse Deluxe collection area. So I was able to move like Akira up there and move some like more Marvel stuff like Hickman's Fantastic Four into here. So making some room for some really great books too. These were good. Just for me, they weren't great, and I didn't enjoy them as much as I felt I should if I'm going to dedicate that much time for it. I did get to make a video about this book because I removed the sticker from the library and I removed the remainder mark. So hey, I got to make a video out of it and use that. Enjoyed the first 4, but it's just not holding my attention. Maybe one day if I want to, I can go back and read it in digital or pick these up again way down the road, because again, they seem to always be in print or readily available even if they're not in print. So let me get these, you know what, we'll just leave them there. So we'll start here, like we have Green Arrow and Superman for Tomorrow, which I've heard are good. And I picked those up on I've always been interested in them, but they're a really good deal. They're through the Ollie's sales, and someone picked them up for me. I paid them for them. I did get them for free, but someone grabbed them for me, shipped them out here, and they've sat on my shelf for a while, and man, I am just never going to get to them. So you know what? They're cool looking books, but out they go, especially because they're so cheap and easy to find. The next series, The Massive. I've read these and I really enjoyed them, but they're pretty readily available and they're not that expensive books. I think they were 50 or 60 bucks for all 3 books, the Ninth Wave and Massive 1 and 2 Library Collection. They're beautiful books, really interesting story. The ending was a little off from what I liked. I mean, it was fun, it was cool, it was different, but I'm probably never going to reread them again. If you're interested in this series, I did an overview of those 2. Cool story. Ending was, it's debatable on whether you like the ending or not. I thought it was fun. Not my total preference, but definitely a fun read. Next one, Planetary. Started reading it. Like I said, didn't hold my attention. I know some people call this book like the top Warren Ellis. Maybe Warren Ellis just isn't for me. That's okay. I thought it was good. Maybe one day I'll come back to it and read it. There's a ton of different formats with absolutes, omnis, there's tons of formats of this book, and it's not that expensive, so I could come back and get it one day. Immortal Iron Fist. This I think it came back in print with an expanded edition, so it's not crazy big whale status. I think it's out of print again, but I read it. I really enjoyed it. Am I going to read it again? Probably not. So we're moving on. I should have sold this book, American Vampire, a long time ago because it became like a mega whale and now it's being reprinted. But you know what? You win some, you lose some. It's all good. I bought it when it was in print, so it's not like I'm losing money by selling a whale that I spent way over cover on or something like that. I really enjoyed this series. I'm very excited for American Vampire Volume 2, and I'll pick that up. And this is being reprinted, so if I ever want to get it down the road, it'll probably be available too. We'll see what happens, but someone else can enjoy it. I'll love to read Volume 2. I'll probably be pre-ordering it relatively soon, and then I'll read that, and I'll probably sell it too, because I'm not going to keep an orphan Volume 2. But Superman, I've just found I am not a big Superman fan. I know he's so loved, and so many people love him, and I respect the character, but I just don't find him exciting at all. And I mean, I know there's some good Superman stuff out there, but it's just not for me. And Grant Morrison, he pulls so much from all over the place, the universes and other stories, that if you're not sticking with him for a very long time and you don't know the ins and outs, probably not for you, probably not for me. It's a pretty cheap book. It was a damaged one off OPB, like super cheap, so picked it up. There we go. That's these 2 stacks. Third stack, we have Revival Deluxe Editions. I wanted to love that story. It was pretty good. I got halfway through it and kind of fell off. I was very excited because it takes place in Wisconsin, where I was born and raised for a bunch of my life. So I started reading them when I went back on a trip to Wisconsin to visit my family. Very cool, but again, just didn't hold my attention. Horror is not normally for me, horror comics. I know I did a big Spooktober event last year in 2021. That was fun, but man, by the time that month was over, I was all spooked out and I was just done with it. And I don't know that I'm ever going to go back and finish this series just because it just didn't intrigue me enough. It was really cool art, interesting story, but again, a lot of these things, some of them might be for you, some of them might not. And I know they're worth a little bit of money and they're hard to find, so time to pass them along. Paramus and Morton Cinder, got those at a great deal, and I was planning on doing this cool read through of a bunch of these types of books with what's it called? The Eternaut. So I was gonna do those and these guys and kind of that European read through, and frankly, Eternaut's really cool. I got to pick that back up again and finish it, but I'm like halfway through and loving it. It's just, I started reading it at the beginning of the pandemic, and there was like wildfires and ash raining from the sky, and I started reading that, and I was like, nope. So I have a little bit of a, okay, I got to put a little space between me and that book right now and that story because it's a little too close to home. So I'm going to go back to it. But these guys, they're really dense, and I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to get into them or not. Sunstone, I was hooked up with that copy. Little bit of a snuff book, very not PG, and I'm not going to be reading that. So that's going to go. Excellence, pretty good book. I really enjoyed that. It was a Kickstarter. Generally, I do not get rid of Kickstarters, but it was fun. I'm never going to reread it again. The art was cool, but frankly, I aligned more with the villain than I did the antagonist. I was very much for the much for the antagonist, not the protagonist, which is strange. But I'm like, dude, you gotta. I know he was like 16, 17, 18 in there, but the teen angst took it to a whole new level for me, and it was really hard to get through. I was like, dude, shut up and just get through life like the rest of us do. But overall, pretty good, but I'm never going to go back to it again. I might read the next one when it comes out. We'll see what happens. Darkness, I want to read it, but man, there's another one out, Darkness Volume 2, so then it's kind of committing to 1 and 2, and biting off more than I can chew. Not an expensive book, easy to find. Just some general trade paperbacks I'm never going to get to again. This was a double dip with Mike Mignola, The Boys. It's too dark for me. A lot of times, like if it's a really dark story, I can't bring myself to read it, just because, especially right now during the pandemic, or I mean, it's kind of ending, but it gets really hard to stick with heavy stories for me. Bill and Ted's, I might read that right before I sell it because it looks interesting. Shooters is a great book. Love that book. I know I'll read it again, but I found this one at like a half price books and I had to pick it up, and I might just give it to a friend or something, but it's got to go because I don't need to. Love having my signed copy by Eric Trotman. His wife and him own Gabby's Olympic Cards and Comics, which is my LCS, my local comic shop, so I wanted to support them. So I'll send this out. It is a great book that explores war and PTSD and what it's like for veterans when they get back from war. Really good book. Essex County, friggin' love this story. It is one of my tops, but I don't need the trade paperback. I have the limited edition slipcase hardcover. It's the 1 in 500, not 1 in 50. But that was given to me by an amazing Omnibuddy. So really appreciate that one. And that's one of my favorite books and favorite stories of all time. But I don't need the trade paperback. We can pass this story along to someone else so that they can get hooked on Essex County and then struggle to find the hardcovers themselves. So that's what I have here. I did sell, I told you I sold 2 whales that people might be shocked that anyone's going to sell those, but I sold Fear Agent Library Editions Volume 1 and 2. I had the really cool custom slip dust jackets for them. Those books were gorgeous, friggin' beautiful books. The story was kind of cool, but honestly, I was never going to go back and reread them. And I know the trade paperbacks are available and all that, and people are desperate for those books. Maybe one day they'll reprint them. We'll see what happens. But you know what? I needed the space. Like, those were library editions. I needed the space down there. And so they had to go along with, you know, the Massive and a couple of these Absolutes and things like that. So that was my thought process. Let me know in the comments if you have other ways of going about culling your collection. I'm really curious to how people go about doing it. Some people say, you know, I read it and it goes. If I'm never going to reread it again, no matter what, it goes. If I can, you know, flip it and get a bunch of money for it, it goes. I'm more of the mind, like, if it's an ultra collectible book that I might reread again, I'll probably keep it. If it's one of my favorite stories that I've ever read, Rachel Rising, Essex County, Usagi, like, those are always going to be permanent in my collection. If I sell everything else, those books will stay. So some of those whales I keep. Some of them, the books just mean a lot to me. They're, you know, from a friend with shooters, or, you know, I backed the Kickstarter early and I know the author, I'm getting to know him pretty well, like Bjorn. That's so cool to have those connections and support artists that you know. So let me know in the comments how you go about culling your collection. What do you do, and what have you found to be terrible, like on afterthought? So you look back and you're like, that was a terrible way to go about culling my collection, because I've never done a really large culling of my collection before. This is probably the biggest. I've sold off lots of books, but I've never sold off a huge pile like this before. How do you go about doing it? What are the pitfalls of it? Let me know in the comments. Excited to talk with you all about it. If you're watching this video early and you're wanting to try and grab one of these books, hit me in the comments, PM me or anything like that. Let me know. But that's it. Remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notification, do all those things. But most importantly, do that commenting. Let me know. Sorry this video was so long, but there are my thoughts on it. There's how I'm doing it. All right, take care. Stay awesome.